On November 30th, we already commented on the terrorist attack carried out by the Kiev regime against 2 tankers in the Black Sea off the coast of Turkey, as well as against an infrastructure facility of the International Caspian Pipeline Consortium in the waters near the port of Novorossiysk. Apparently, Kiev ignored Ankara and Astana's unequivocal reaction to this, and on December 1st authorized a new attack using unmanned boats against a Russian commercial vessel, which was located 80 nautical miles from Turkey's Black Sea coast. Fortunately, neither the crew nor the ship were seriously harmed, but all these terrorist acts, as we understand, have one aim: to disrupt the upcoming peace process to resolve the conflict and to undermine navigation security in the Black Sea. The Kiev regime is a terrorist regime. No matter how much Western ideologists attempt to deny this truth or blind their own populations, there are increasingly more facts emerging every day that confirm this harsh reality, not of natural origin, but artificially created. Despite the guarantee of the protection of the Russian language in the Constitution, the decision of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine was, clearly, a continuation of this highly destructive policy. It shows that an entirely anti-people regime is in power in Kiev. How can that be? Russian is spoken more widely by people in Ukraine, yet the regime, through this very Russian language, seeks to eradicate it, as if it doesn't realize that it is the language spoken and thought by the Ukrainian people. What's happening in Ukraine regarding language policies is absolute madness. Naturally, these actions suggest there's no appetite in Kiev for a peaceful resolution. After all, one of the key requirements should be the abolition of discrimination against the Russian language and Russian-speaking citizens, along with respect for the rights of all nationalities living in Ukraine. We urge international organizations to provide an objective assessment of this decision by the Kiev regime and to take measures to encourage compliance with human rights obligations. The current European elites, who have effectively brought the work of the OSCE to a standstill, must accept full responsibility for the destruction of the Helsinki Principles. But for that to happen, they need to acknowledge it all before they can truly face their responsibility. They don't even want to admit or recognize it. Yes, there might still be a chance to save these very principles, but the Western minority, those in power, are actively destroying them. As a result, the chances diminish each day. So, the question is, are Western countries prepared to move away from confrontational, aggressive approaches? If not, then the OSCE's decline into oblivion will be unavoidable. Brussels uses human rights to exert pressure on third countries. But when it's not convenient, despite ongoing human rights abuses, they turn a blind eye to violations, whether within the European Union member states or in candidate countries seeking accession. Take Ukraine, for example. What hasn't happened there in terms of human rights? In reality, they don't seem to have any. Has the European Union spoken out? It's not even a question of Ukraine not being an EU member. They constantly comment on non-member countries. Yet Moldova doesn't raise any concerns under the Moldovan President Maria Zakharova regime, even though before her, or regardless, Moldova was always on their radar, like always. Let me emphasize that the European Union, especially in its current state, has no moral authority to lecture others. We see how the EU is desperately, almost hysterically, searching for ways to seize Russian sovereign assets that have been frozen, in order to prop up its own failed experiment with the corrupt Kiev regime. They're even investing more in the military-industrial complex, naively hoping it will somehow rescue the EU economy from its worsening crisis. There have been high-level statements declaring that since Moscow's money is in the hands of the EU, it has the right to decide what to do with it. That speaks for itself. It's an astonishing story, criminal logic at its worst. And yet, the EU realizes that stealing on such a massive scale won't go unnoticed. Those involved will have to face the consequences. As a result, we see a frantic process of passing the buck, with responsibilities shifting from one member state to another. In this already shameful EU family, almost all means have been exhausted: threats, blackmail, disinformation. Nothing has been created or invented that could justify this theft, which has no other grounds. Therefore, I can confirm that preparations for a package of retaliatory measures are already in progress in response to the actual theft and seizure of Russian assets. Yesterday, a law was published and came into force. On the same day, the Russian embassy in Chisinau received a note from the Moldovan Foreign Ministry informing it of their intention to terminate the aforementioned intergovernmental agreement. It is on this basis that the Russian House, the Russian Center for Science and Culture, operates in Chisinau. We view this decision, as we have already stated beforehand, as yet another step aimed at dismantling the centuries-old Russian-Moldovan relations. The claim that the center is a tool, as asserted by the authorities involved in the hybrid war against the Republic of Moldova, is simply seen by Moldovans as mockery of the people. Signatures are actively being collected for petitions calling for the cancellation of the decision to close the Russian House. Currently, more than 5,000 people have expressed their support for this, by the way. I want to reiterate what we've already discussed, but I'd like to emphasize that Russia strictly adheres to the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. The accusations of an attempt to infringe Moldova's sovereignty are baseless propaganda slogans, unsupported by any evidence. In fact, such evidence simply does not exist.
The meeting between the President of Russia and the special envoys of the President of the United States that took place the other day. In this context, the question is, has the Russian Foreign Ministry received any instructions from the President following this meeting? And if so, what are they?
This question was addressed by Russian presidential aide Yuri Viktorovich Ushakov, who stated that the details of these meetings will not be made public because, as you correctly pointed out, these meetings, indeed, they are, as you mentioned, are focused on results, not on external appearances. While this is undoubtedly important, especially considering that the international community is already weary of aggressive, destructive statements and the wave of negative information that is currently coming, predominantly from Brussels and Western Europe. Nonetheless, the primary focus of this meeting was on achieving a specific outcome.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.